Number you button on the mic and see.
Thank you. Got it.
Okay. I'd like to call the Smart Audit Committee meeting, not the agenda, just the meeting, to order. Note that it's 12:09 p.m. And can we have a calling of the roll, please?
Chairman. Chairman Committee Member Eli Cooper,
Present.
Ms. Sheila Cote,
Present.
Mr. Asad Turpi.
Present.
Can I get a motion for adoption of the agenda, please?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
How am I doing, guys? Okay. So we now have an agenda. Next item on our agenda is the certification of public notice.
Public notice, SMART will hold its audit committee meeting on Thursday, October 23rd, 2025 at 12 p.m. at the South, I'm sorry, can't. SMART will hold its audit committee meeting on Thursday, October 23rd at 12 noon p.m. at Simcox. The building is located at 1001 Woodward Avenue, Suite 1400, Detroit, Michigan 48226. The agenda can be found on SMART's website. Members of the public may attend in person or via Zoom. Members of the public may also submit a written comment by emailing smartboard@smartbus.org. Requests for reasonable accommodations at SMART require advanced reservations. Public comments will proceed as follows. All comments, 3 minutes, limit per member of public. Public comments will be received in the following order. Members of the public who attend in person, members of the public present via Zoom, written comments via email. This meeting is open to the public.
Thank you. So now we've reached public participation. Are there any members of the public present who'd like to speak to the committee? Seeing none, now we also have provided opportunity for alternative participation. Do we have anyone either email or on Zoom?
Chairman Cooper, no.
Thank you for that. Okay, so with that, I'll close the public participation and move on to new business. Before us is the approval of the audited financial statements for the year ending June 30, 2025, including other independent audit reports. I'll turn it over to Ryan Byrne, please.
Thank you. Thank you everybody for being here. Today we're going to go through the annual financial report, which has been audited by our friends over at Plant Moran, who I have here with me today. They also do an audit of our federal awards. So in a moment, I'm going to turn it over to them to kind of go through the findings of their audit. I'll have a couple of additional things to say, but feel free to stop us at any time if you have any questions or if you'd like to add any detail. Our plan isn't to go through every word in these reports just because they are quite lengthy, but we're happy to take questions at any point during the presentation. I want to thank my staff in the finance department. It's quite an undertaking getting through the annual financial report. We start this process in pretty great detail in June, so it's pretty heavy lift to get through it, and I just want to say thank them for all their hard work and diligence in completing the audit. And I will turn it over to Plant Moran, and they can kind of talk about the findings of their audit. You guys want to do the podium bit? I will also pull up the financials on a screen just so if anybody is online watching, they can see.
Thanks, Ryan. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Keith Chmielewski. I'm a partner with Plant Moran. With me here as well is Amy Titer, manager on the engagement. We're here to go over the draft results of both the financial statement audit and the federal awards single audit, and we'll also cover our end of audit letter addressed to the board of directors. All of these deliverables, despite being in draft form, are essentially complete. We're not expecting any changes. They've been through all levels of review, including our internal quality control review. So it's just a matter of getting a few final pieces of information in order to finalize the document prior to coming to go over the results with the full board at the December meeting. I should also point out the single audit report is done in accordance with the annual compliance supplement issued by the federal government. That has been significantly delayed this year and is not yet available. So we will have to hold off on finalizing the single audit report until that is done. However, we've completed all of our testing based on a draft that's available. And once the final version is released, we will verify there are no other changes or required testing that needs to be performed before doing that. So certainly the financial statements will be completed soon. The single audit report will have to wait on the compliance supplement, which we're told will at least be open to be released until at least the end of the shutdown. And then it could be more time after that. In addition to the reports we're going to go over today, we've completed agreed upon procedures reports and issued those to SMART. And we have one more agreed upon procedures engagement, which will be completed after the audit. I'm happy to say the audit process went very smoothly. We have many positive results to go over with you this afternoon. I want to thank Ryan and his entire team, as well as many others at the authority who were very helpful in helping us complete the audit. And I echo Ryan's comments. We too began the process back in June. We do quite a bit of planning and preparation throughout the summer. We're at SMART's offices for 4 weeks in August and September, and it takes us about another week to wrap things up. So it's a very intensive process, and we thank everyone for their cooperation. As we get into the draft results, we'll start with the financial statements, and I'll mention that it is an unmodified independent auditor's report, which is a clean opinion and the highest level of assurance we can give to a set of financial statements. That lets the readers know that they can rely on all the information that follows. With that, I'm going to turn it over to go over some of the financial highlights, then I'll come back and talk about the other deliverables.
Thank you, Keith. So I'll cover the financial statements briefly, just some highlights with you all here today. As Keith mentioned, I'll start on page 1, which is the independent auditor's report. We did SMART did receive an modified opinion this year. But what I did want to touch on as well is about halfway down on that page, there is an emphasis of matter paragraph included in our auditor's report this year as well. This is just letting readers know that SMART did adopt a new accounting standard this year, GASB statement number 101, which is compensated absences. This is just deals with the calculation and recognition of compensated absences, that liability in the financial statements. This standard is required to be adopted retrospectively. So that means that because SMART's financial statements are comparative, the adjustment has to be as of June 30, 2023. So the very end of note 1 on page 20 does detail the restatement that was required because of this adoption, and that impacted 2023 net position by about $688,000. Now I'll move on to the statement of net position that's on page 7. If you're following along here, just cover some brief highlights here. Starting at the top of the page, current assets are up about $16 million. $7 million of this is coming from the cash and investments lines, and then another $7 million of this increase is coming from receivables. Most largely, you'll see the grant receivable line has an increase from $41 million to almost $48 million. Your non-current assets, those are down by about $13 million. This is really just a function of depreciation this year being greater than the asset additions to the authority. Continuing further, your current liabilities are up about $2 million this year, but I think the biggest thing to talk about on this page is your non-current liabilities. Those decreased by $50 million this year. The most of that is coming from that net pension liability line, coming in at about $21 million this year. So your net pension liability, just as a reminder, this is as of December 31st, 2024, which is MERS most recent year end. If you recall, at the end of last fiscal year, SMART had an additional contribution of about 60 million to pension. Due to how the MERS rolls up into your financial statements, the impact of that contribution is reflected in your 6/30/2025 statements here. So that is a big piece of the decrease. Your pension actually, as of year end, is 93.6% funded. This is up about 17 percentage points over last year. And I know I didn't touch on it, but your OPEB, actually, that is up in the non-current asset section. This is over 100% funded, and I believe it's been this way for a couple of years now. Turning over the page to net position, I just want to cover that section really briefly. Net position is broken out into 3 different categories: net investment in capital assets, restricted, and unrestricted. So your net investment in capital assets, that's money that's already been spent in the form of buses, terminals, equipment, etc. Restricted is money that can only be used for a specific purpose. So you're by far the largest piece in this category is the amount restricted for your retiree health care. And then the residual is unrestricted, which is available to fund future operations. That was about 136 here. Continuing to the statement of revenue, expenses, and changes in net position, I'll just again cover some brief highlights here. Fares are up just slightly over 3%. Your total operating expenses are also up about 25%. Now, about 3/4 of this operating expense increase is really coming from your top 2 lines here, salaries and wages and fringe, which are up about 40% over prior year. The function of the higher employee count SMART has right now and the wage increases that took effect over the past year. Going into the next section, the non-operating revenue, this is where you're going to find all your major sources of revenue. First and foremost, local contributions, which is property taxes. That is up about 27% this year. A big part of that is just timing and the contractual agreement with Oakland County. Your next biggest revenue source, state operating grants. So this would include Act 51 money. This is up about 17% over last year. And then the last one I wanted to touch on was just your federal operating revenue. I do like to look at this kind of with capital contributions, which is a bit further down, just because these categories can fluctuate year to year based on the activity at SMART and how they elect to apply their grant awards. But if you look at these 2 categories, those are up about 24% over last year. As Brian and Keith mentioned, we do perform an audit over the federal awards, and we'll cover that shortly after this. But I did just want to kind of wrap up the financial statements with saying that you can see here the change in net position is just over 14 million. So 14 million was added to net position this. I wasn't going to cover any of the other pages in great detail, but certainly if there's any questions over those.
Yeah. Question I have, salaries and wages, there's about a $21 million increase. What was the main reason for that? Is it
The hiring of other drivers.
more
We have a
drivers,
couple.
more employees?
Yes.
We also settled the union contracts in July and September of last year, or of 2024. So this is the first year where the higher wage rate for the new union contracts really kicked in. That more employees being paid at a higher rate is
Right.
why we have
Yeah.
higher wages.
And you mentioned additional investments into the mirrors for the pension system. You guys happen to know at what percentage mirrors is funded at?
94%?
Yeah, just about 94%.
Well, that's the gold standard. There is one.
That's what we're shooting
That
for.
was the
is
goal.
no legacy liabilities. Yep.
Thank you.
I'll give it back to Keith.
Before you do that, I do have one question. You had introduced the concept of unrestricted net assets as being available for operations. Is there policies that govern the use of those particular funds? And if somebody could speak to what's normal, if you will, or an anticipated amount of unrestricted net assets. Let me just preface that by saying that several years ago, I was a member of a different transit authority board, and we had specific policies addressing the amount and the use of that. And I'm curious as to what the equivalent, if they are, with regard to SMART and its unrestricted net assets.
SMART does not have a board policy requiring or any guidance on the use of the unrestricted net position. But what we try and shoot for is having 6 to 9 months of operating expenses available, plus whatever our initial capital needs are. So if we're doing a major bus buy and we're going to have to pay money out before we can get reimbursed for it, or something like that. It could be facilities improvement as well. So we try and make sure that we have that available to us. We can certainly look into creating a board policy on what figures we should shoot for, just to make sure we're utilizing the funds appropriately.
It's not an allegation or question of whether they're being used appropriately or not. It's, as we look at $135 million sitting in an unrestricted net reserve account, the question is, at what level do we have an adequate balance? And then to the extent that there may be some initiatives that the board would be interested in proceeding with or pursuing, this is part of where those assets might be used, depending on if and what the policy is governing A, their intended use, and B, the anticipated use. Thank you.
Just one more comment. So we are at kind of a high point in net position throughout the year. We receive most of our property tax revenue from from Wayne and Macomb. The Oakland contract is kind of spread out over quarterly. So we receive most of that revenue in March and April. So we're sort of at the high point that we spend down over the remainder of the fiscal year. So your low point is generally right before in February, March. So you 130, we don't want to necessarily say last year we had, or as of June, we had 135. So we can spend X, because we do kind of have to model out those cash flows and make sure that as our low point, we're not getting into critical areas. But again, that's something that we can bring more information and bring more detail to the board.
Thank you for that. I look forward to future discussions.
All right. There are no further questions on the financial statements. I'm going to move on to the smaller document, the federal awards supplemental information, which also has a cover page. Just briefly cover this. There are 3 independent auditor reports at the front, all of which are unmodified or clean opinions. The schedule of expenditures of federal awards is currently numbered page 1. That lists all of the active awards with the current year spending. So nearly $28 million was spent on federal programs during the year. Then flipping ahead a couple more pages, page 4, the schedule of findings and question costs is sort of a high-level overview of the results of the audit. So starting from the top, the financial statements section is once again an unmodified opinion, and there were no findings that we need to bring to your attention. Moving down from there, in the federal awards section, there was one finding, which we'll go into in a second. And in the middle of the page, a little bit partway down from there, we note that the major federal program that was required to be tested this year was the Federal Transit Cluster. And that had approximately $25 million of federal spending. So of the $28 million in total spent from the federal government, $25 million was subject to testing in this compliance audit. At the bottom of page 4, section 2, we note that there were no financial statement audit findings once again, which is a tremendous credit to the team here at SMART. That's something that's not difficult to achieve between the very in-depth look that we're taking at internal controls to make sure that there are no potential issues, as well as the degree to which we beat up the numbers to make sure that they're materially correct as of the end of the year. The fact that we didn't identify any findings related to either of those areas is a tremendous accomplishment. Lastly, on page 5, section 3, there was one finding related to the federal program findings. However, that is essentially a repeat of a finding from the triennial report related to subrecipient monitoring. We did some additional testing over subrecipients in the monitoring process, and we did not find anything other than what was already noted in the triennial report. So nothing there should come as a surprise to the board or the audit committee. And is our understanding the authority's already reviewed and corrected its procedures and will improve subrecipient monitoring going forward. So we expect this to be a one-time finding.
I did include for reference, and again, we won't go through this in detail, but the SMART team has been working really diligently in trying to correct this issue and provide the additional procedures. I did provide a draft of our updated subrecipient oversight procedures manual that SMART is adopting. I'm also going to share with you very quickly the checklist that we've monitored. Now, I do not expect anybody to read this just because it is quite voluminous, but there is, what we are working diligently to do is make sure that we're documenting correctly and having the appropriate schedule to complete all subrecipient monitoring. Don't expect anybody to read this, but it just goes to show that it is quite a bit of work that does go into making sure that we have the appropriate oversight of all of the different agencies in the area that receive funding or equipment.
All right.
Ryan, before you move on, with respect to this subrecipient oversight procedure, it's great to see that there's this amount of detail. Has this information been provided to the subrecipient so that they're aware of what the standards they're being held to?
We have reached out, so we have a schedule of folks that we're getting out and taking a look at. We have begun that process, but no, we have not had communications with every subrecipient at this time. It's going to take us to get through everybody. Our goal is April of 2027 to have everybody audited. So we're taking a few communities at a time. And then, so basically what happens is there'll be a churn where we've gone out and reviewed everybody at least over a 2-year period to help us comply with the federal regulations.
My question isn't about the time frame of when the auditing is, just in terms of the procedures that you're auditing who is the background information, the checklist, so to speak, been provided to them so they're aware of where we'll be looking?
That is still in process.
I'm going to follow up that question just to make sure that we have full clarity. We are sending that document to our subrecipients for them to have that currently.
Yes.
And they will have that before the end of this year.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, last document to review with you this afternoon is our draft end of audit letter addressed to the board of directors. This letter includes 3 sections. Section 1 are required communications under the auditing standards. This is essentially a follow-up to the letter we sent to the entire board before the audit, laying out our plan for the audit. There's not a lot outside of the boilerplate language in this letter. I will point out a couple things. Near the bottom of page 2, we talk about GASB statement number 101, which, as Amy mentioned, was implemented during the year and resulted in a fairly minor change to the authority's financial statements. On the top of page 3, we detail out any significant estimates that we considered as part of the audit. Those include the net pension and retiree healthcare liabilities and assets, the estimated liabilities for legal and workers' compensation claims, and the estimated reserve for the state operating grants, the Act 51 revenue. Based on our testing and our review of all the assumptions and the methodologies that went into calculating those estimates, we find them all to be materially correct and reasonably stated. Going on from there, happy to report there were no difficulties encountered in performing the audit, no disagreements with management, no misstatements that we identified as part of the audit, nothing else that we need to bring to your attention. Section 2 of the letter on page 5 includes a couple of recommendations based on observations during this audit and a couple of the previous ones. The first one relates to reporting from the community partners, those that receive money passed through SMART. Several of the agreed upon procedures reports that I mentioned focus on going out and testing the processes and the information that comes from those community partners. And we did find a fair amount of inaccuracies or lack of timeliness in the information that was coming to SMART. And so we recommend a couple things. One, reviewing the procedures with the community partners, letting them know what the expectations are, providing some guidance to them so that they're well aware of what SMART's expectations are. And then two, following up on both these findings and some of the previous ones and implementing some additional review procedures to identify some of these other inaccuracies. So these were not instances in which anyone appeared to be intentionally overstating their expenses or getting money they didn't deserve, but it truly was misunderstandings in what they were reporting or just some inaccuracies, not large dollar amounts in what they were requesting from SMART. And those errors went both ways, both requesting a little bit more money than they had spent in a particular quarter, or in some cases requesting less than they could have. The second recommendation are grant best practices, and in particular, the time lag that it takes from when expenses are incurred, invoices are received from vendors, those vendors are paid, and then all of those expenses are accumulated and reimbursement is requested from the federal government. That can take several months, and as we noted, of the $28 million in federal spending during the year, about $20 million was in unbilled receivables as of June 30th. And so naturally, there's going to be some time lag as all of those processes take place. But given some of the uncertainties of late with federal program in general, and of course the shutdown we're in the middle of right now, we recommend to the extent possible, SMART look at condensing that time frame and getting those reimbursement requests in as timely as possible.
Excuse me, I have a question regarding the concerns regarding the community partners and whether or not there is a correction plan in place or a proposed process or procedure that would help correct that issue. That's something that we're looking into.
We have unfilled but budgeted positions that we're looking to fill.
Okay.
To help us with exactly this process.
Mhm.
Somebody to collect, review, reach out to folks on particularly timeliness,
Mhm.
and as well as our additional subrecipient monitoring procedures will help us identify and train folks, identify issues and train folks on correct ways to the correct way to submit reporting.
Yeah, and I think, Ryan, we talked previously about, some of the community partners being Parks and Rec directors and not
Right.
necessarily skilled in terms of filling out financial reports and paperwork. So I'm really interested to hear what comes back in terms of streamlining that process and making it a little bit clearer and transparent for both sides. So thank you.
Just to close things out on the letter, section 3 are legislative and informational items we think might be of interest to the board and to management, but these are not specific to SMART, and I'm not planning to go into them in any detail today. So just to close things out, I want to thank everyone at the authority once again for their cooperation during the audit. I'm happy with the results, as the board should be as well. There were positive financial results. The status of SMART's legacy costs, the pension and the retiree healthcare funding are really best in class. It's hard to find another municipal entity, particularly of this size, that has achieved the level of funding that SMART has, particularly with recent contributions to significantly improve those positions. So pause once again if there are any questions related to these items that we've gone over or anything financial related maybe we haven't touched on yet.
So I do have a question relative to the item on the agenda. You had indicated as you started that the single audit report requirements are not yet been provided from the federal government. Are you looking for us to accept this material as draft? Are we waiting until we get the single report letter for the board to accept the audit report? Maybe it's a question for Ryan.
Before we finalize, All right. Before we finalize that report, well, as soon as we won't finalize that report until we are positive that we've met the requirements of the updated guidance. So while we're not anticipating any major changes, if there are any major changes, we would return to the board or this committee to explain whatever those changes might be.
The request is for action to accept what has been provided today.
Correct.
Thank you. Anything else from the committee?
No, I just want to thank Ryan and his team for really doing a great job. And it sounds like things are in good shape. And that's not an easy task. And we appreciate Plant Moran and your efforts as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I'll add my voice in terms of sitting on this side of the table and hearing of a clean audit report. And whether it's a small operation or a large operation, that's just music to the ears of the board members. So I appreciate your diligent effort to investigate and clarify and verify, and for staff's teamwork for both helping facilitate an audit as well as maintaining the financial records all during the course of the year. It's quite a large operation, and hear that everything's in good shape is wonderful news. Thank you. Entertain a motion to accept the report.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? If not, all those in favor, signify
Aye.
by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you. Okay, that concludes the new business on our agenda. Do the committee members have any business?
No.
With no new committee business, it takes me to the second time I get to wield the hammer, if you will. Announce the meeting is adjourned. Thank you. Louder?
That's
Well, I can hit it hard.